They dominated the federal election, but are we about to see Teal Wave 2.0 in Victoria? I'm Leonardo Puglisi. This is SpinCheck. Good evening, happy Thursday everyone, thanks for joining us here on SpinCheck, here on 6 News. Of course, Teal independents dominated the federal election campaign. 10 independents now sit in the House of Representatives. One of those is Monique Ryan, who represents the seat of Kooyong. She defeated incumbent Liberal Treasurer Josh Frydenberg at the May federal election. But two groups now want to back candidates in the federal election of Kooyong in two state electorates. Kew independents and Hawthorn independents are both trying to back independent candidates for the November Victorian election. Kew is currently held by incumbent Liberal MP Tim Smith, who is not recontesting the election, and Hawthorn is held by first-term Labor MP John Kennedy, who defeated the Liberals in a shock upset in 2018. First, we spoke to Kew independents Hayden O'Connor, who worked on Monique Ryan's team as a social media and IT manager. Take a look. You put a call out for an independent candidate, expressions of interest, and I imagine you might get a few, if you haven't already, a few people, might want to apply. But isn't this like a pre-selection process? It's not the usual thing that happens for an independent. I mean, who chooses in your group who you'll be backing? Is it you personally?
So definitely not me personally as an individual. I'll be on the selection committee as the director of the campaign, but it's actually the same process that selected Monique Ryan. Obviously, with independents, anyone who's you don't even have to be in the community. Anyone can run as an independent. They can just say, I want to run for Kew as an independent. They can do that. That doesn't make them a community-backed independent, which is what we're looking to have. So we're almost finished establishing a selection committee of members in the community, and these are people that aren't your typical political, party people. They're just members of our local community in the electorate of Kew who are interested in community representation. So they're not big names in politics or anything like that. They're just everyday people.
We'll be making public who those people are?
No, I don't think that's fair. That wasn't done with Monique Ryan's campaign either. I don't believe with any other independent campaign. I don't think it's fair on the other members of the selection committee to make public who they are. Obviously, I'm happy to state that I'm on the committee, and if those other members are happy to state that they're on the committee, then we can make it public. But I'm certainly not going to make that a condition of being on the committee.
Obviously, you were part of Monique Ryan's team federally as the social media and IT manager.
Yeah.
Given Kew is part of the federal Kooyong electorate, as you just touched on there, are you expecting an endorsement from her here? Because I imagine if it did happen, it would help.
I wouldn't expect so. I wouldn't ask for one. I don't think it's appropriate for that. I think Monique's obviously got nothing to do with this campaign, even though I worked for her in the federal campaign. I no longer work for Monique Ryan, and this is completely separate. Still, obviously the similar movement that we saw with several other candidates at the federal election, but I don't expect that would occur. I think political endorsements need to come from obviously members of the community, which I believe Monique lives in the electorate of Hawthorn. So in that respect, probably not appropriate.
Hayden O'Connor there. Now, we also spoke to Brent Hodgson. He was also on Monique Ryan's team during the federal election campaign. He also appeared in one of their campaign ads. He's a former Liberal Party voter. He's with Hawthorn Independents. I also spoke to him earlier. Take a look. You've put out a call out for an independent candidate in Hawthorn. I know that isn't, what we usually hear about when it comes to independents. I mean, it's almost a bit like a pre-selection process, isn't it? I mean, who decides the candidate your group will back? Is it you personally?
Man, it is completely upside down. So typically in a party, you would start with a candidate and then they would get some support. What happens here is we work out what the issues are and what the values are that the candidate, the electorate actually wants to see action on. We find people that want to see action on those issues, and then those people end up selecting the candidate. So it's a bottom-up approach to politics. Basically, it's the community backing an independent rather than having the choice between the red team or the blue team.
Yeah, of course, but at the same time, it's not every single elected person in Hawthorn here. It's still a few select people. Is it going to be made public who's actually going to be, on this committee of sorts backing the independent?
Anyone can join Hawthorn Independence and be part of the actual process of bringing this campaign together. The people that are on the committee, I don't think it's wise to actually put those names out there in public, but I think it is wise to actually put the process out there in public and to look at the types of questions that we're asking, the types of things that we're sort of rating candidates on. And by having a look at those, I suppose those measures, there's a level of integrity and a level of visibility in the actual process.
Climate 200 was a big player during the federal election. Have they approached Hawthorn Independents regarding potential support, or are you approaching them regarding them potentially supporting you guys?
I would love their support, but one of the issues with getting support from an entity like Climate 200 is the first thing that they're going to ask you is, so who's your candidate? So right now, we haven't even passed step one of their actual selection process in terms of the support that they might potentially be able to provide.
But you said you'd love their support. Have you actually approached them yet?
No, not yet. No,
Gotcha.
we don't have a candidate to approach them with, unfortunately.
And do you expect you'll get a candidate soon? Because, I look back at the federal election campaign, and Monique Ryan's campaign launch was in December last year, ahead of the May election. And it is August, and it's still, a few months away from that November election.
Leo, you're giving me the anxiety here.
You think you'll get a candidate by the end of the month?
I reckon by the end of the month, absolutely. It would be great to run a 100-day election campaign, and that would put us in the middle of this month.
Yeah, now, obviously, at the federal election, and this extends outside of Kooyong too to where other independents won, a lot of people who did vote for those independents were traditionally Labor voters. Now, this is, of course, a Labor electorate we're talking about. The, so-called Teal independents, they weren't targeting Labor-held electorates in the federal campaign, but we're seeing it now. We're seeing it here in Hawthorn. Why do you think they would go and vote independent now instead of Labor in a Labor seat?
We've gone out and we've chatted with literally tens of thousands of people in the electorate. And in doing that, we've been collecting a lot of values over the community-backed campaigns that have been happening, going way back to, the council elections of 2020, I think it was. Anyway, long story short, it means that we've found all of these, insights about the things that actually motivate people to vote in a particular way. And we've been looking at the values that actually motivate someone to vote one way or another. And it can actually be quite a diverse range of things that they vote for. So it's really hard to say this is the one reason that people would shift their vote, for example, from Labor to an independent. But on issues such as climate and integrity and politics done differently, these are some of the core issues that people actually look to the Teal independents or the community-backed independents as representing really effectively. And if that's the case, they seem to be shifting their votes naturally to them. There was a bit of polling that was released in The Age over the weekend. It was by the Redbridge Group, and it showed that already, even before a candidate is even announced, running in Hawthorn is likely to result in a 55 to 45 result favouring the independent over the Liberal candidate. So at the moment, it's even looking like that's him. Yeah. So at the moment, it's looking like it's going to be an independent versus Liberal final two. And it looks like that those votes have already started to swing over towards the independent. And people have seen what Monique Ryan is doing in the federal parliament. They want to see that sort of stuff happen at the state parliament too.
Yeah, but obviously a state electorate, far less people voting than what you would see federally. The numbers are
Yeah,
down. As you mentioned, the issues become a lot more hyper-local. Do you
yeah.
think it might be hard trying to convince some of those regular Labor supporters to vote independent, especially some of the more, rusted-on ones? Because if you told some of them that it's going to be Liberal, Independent, two-party or two-candidate preferred, and you take Labor
Yeah.
out of the mix there, people would, start to think, hang on, whose side is this independent on? Are they either, some might say they're de facto Labor there, and then you'd have
Yeah.
others who just say they're essentially Liberal light here. So those rusted on ALP supporters, are they going to be a challenge for you trying to get them to swing independent?
I think every voter is a challenge in their own unique way. And one of the things that we do very well is we don't take any voter for granted. So there's a lot of one-on-one conversations that happen through an independent campaign, and that's why, for example, you would have seen our door knocking at in Kooyong. The people of Hawthorn did a huge amount of door knocking. Um, we had a lot of one-on-one conversations with individual voters, and it seemed to be those one-on-one conversations that built trust and built rapport and led to the vote swinging behind Monique Ryan.
Brent Hodgson there from Hawthorn Independence. That is Spin Check for this Thursday evening. Thanks so much for tuning in. Of course, you can find more of the latest headlines and plenty more on this story by heading to our website, SIXNewsAU.com. And you can also see our Victorian election coverage, Victoria Decides Election 2022, on our website as well. For now, though, I'm Leonardo Puglisi. Have a good night.